I am Joshua K. Sabra, Esquire, and he is Dr. Miles Salisbury. And you are listening to the Miles Ahead podcast, where we share tactics, techniques, and protocol to improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health while you walk the path of the warrior. Stay tuned. In this episode, our returning champion, Phil Horning, joins us to discuss attunement, presence, relationships, and the obstacles that get in the way. So pull out your pen and paper, and what have you. This is going to be a good one. And we're live here at the Miles Ahead podcast with our first and arguably best guest, Phil Horning. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you for having me back. It's great to be here.
Back.
Yeah.
Trying to get him to move here. It's
Pressure
gonna happen.
campaign.
It's going to happen.
Pressure campaign's on.
No, he's staying in first edition in the old Lake Oswego, Airbnb.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
nice.
been beautiful here.
Nice part of town. Yeah.
Now's the time, Phil, to pick up a wealthy divorcee and get the next half of your life just sorted out.
No, it's up in Marlin to be at the gym today because he's got that. He's got the WAGs, as we say in soccer, wives and girlfriends contingency cornered, man. Just like the group coaching. A lot of rubbernecking with the dudes when you go into the gym when he's coaching. But they weren't there today. It was I don't know what. I guess I took a day off.
They gave you a day off, Miles. Is what they did.
Yeah. It took me my neck's. I didn't need a neck workout today. You worked us enough today.
That's it, man. Well, just a little bit of knocking the dust off. When I'm working with two elite level athletes, it's important to know how hard to push without actually taking the guitar out of tune because you guys are in such good shape. So
That's
good.
true.
Good keeping the pressure on me.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. No, it was definitely a bit of a challenge for me. I think you pushed the right buttons there and you got the right places for where I needed to go.
The audience can't tell whether it was chest day or an orgy. But that's good. Let's
The
leave
sound
it,
effects.
Let's leave it a mystery.
Yeah, exactly. This is off to a good start already.
What are you listening to, Miles?
So Foo Fighters are in town. They played at the Providence Park. Wish I would have made it. So All My Life.
Dang.
That was just one of their best ones. So good.
Epic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're on my list. They've earned their way onto my list of the show I want to see live. So
I saw them way back when they first became a band. What was that, like 2 years after Kurt Cobain died, something like that? But I never got to see Nirvana, but he did some drumming during that concert, which was cool to see. So it's like, okay, I got to see Dave Grohl actually freaking drum. That's awesome.
if you watch, go on YouTube and just like remind yourself of how much time has passed.
Oh yeah.
Dave Grohl looks like a child when he's in even Foo Fighters Learning to Fly.
Yep.
He was like 22 maybe or 24 or whatever. He's young, at that time, but he looks like a baby.
Pretty wild.
It is. Good song though.
Yeah.
Good song.
Yeah, you like them.
Classic. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so the latest song I've been listening to is a little lesser known that I just kind of randomly came up through, Spotify radio. But it actually looking through the lyrics and everything on it, it was pretty inspirational, building yourself up. It's called Fury by Stim and RJ Passon. And really it was just like, I don't know, for me, a good song at the gym, a good song to kind of just pump you up a bit, but also it's a good way to say just, you have to build yourself up, temper your own crown, put it on your own head. It's basically a lot of that is, and saying you have to go through the hard things in life and cut through it.
Temper your own crown.
Yeah.
I like that.
Create your own crown. And
it's like the hero's journey.
Yeah, I think it's probably based off of some kind of game or something. I'm guessing this song was
Dungeons and Dragons.
No, probably something else. Because of course, the picture of the album cover is like some guy holding a huge, massive blade, and I think it's probably based off that, but actually the lyrics itself are really good. So yeah.
So the this is theory, and the lyrics actually say "Forge your own crown."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, temper
your own crown.
your crown. So,
And I wonder if that means more like temperance.
So tempering, just for the audience, the reason I said forge and not tempering, because most people don't know. I mean, it's freaking Portland, so of course there's probably several blacksmiths in the audience that. What are you talking about? I temper my steel all the time. Is where you pound out. You put the blade in water, you bring it back out, you pound it out again, you temper it, and tempering steel is how you make it more durable.
That's the temperature part when you put it in the water. Maybe is that where that comes from?
I have no idea.
I wonder. Yeah, that's where temperance comes from. Sort of the same idea.
I think it's just kind of like hammering it out. Yeah, just slowly doing that with forging metal. You temper it.
Kind of like we're doing this podcast.
Yeah,
we're just not really getting to the point right now.
But
we're hammering it out.
I mean, I'll save a few lines of it because I actually have it pulled up here because I wanted to make sure I reminded myself of it. But it says, like, basically it just starts off by sealed up by fate, aerate the embers, a scarlet taste, my blade remembers, temper my crown, I wield what can't decay, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave.
That's a lot.
And that's the chorus main part of it. So, but
Wait,
it's a lot of
I'll rob the grave or rot in the grave.
Rob to get his, his sense of pride back, his sense of self. I think that's how I take it.
Rob the grave. So he's gonna have to recapitulate.
Yes, got to go to Hades.
Yeah, this is good. We're going to talk about recapitulation.
Yes, go to the shadows.
I'm gonna be classic, and I'm listening to Good Charlotte's the anthem, because I am a basic bitch, and I stick with the things that made me excited when I was in high school. But the gym knows me so well that when I put on like certain stations, it just plays like my favorite bands from that genre. So if I put on grunge or punk, it's just like Bad Religion and No Effects and this like stuff that I have I've thumbs up enough times so where it's like, okay, I know what the owner of this channel wants from me. So I get a lot of the things I like. So going back to the lab on that.
I like it, the classics.
But today we're gonna go far and wide. This is a breadth, a width conversation versus depth. Although we'll go deep where we have to. Everybody's got something to report on. I'm gonna share a little bit about my experience coming back from the next level. The next level seminar, conference, retreat. It's called a retreat. The next level retreat that James Wedmore's group just finished over the weekend. It was a Thursday, Friday.
This is who your sort of mentor is at the moment.
Yeah, my active mentor. Absolutely. James Wedmore is a business coach. He's known for the Wedmore Woo. So he's like mixes up faith and spirituality into the business conversation. So this weekend was all about stillness. And he did a good job of cultivating the right culture for that. And I'm curious about the reflection of what that feels like at a Connor Beaton, event. But this was in the event took place in Irvine, California. So, LA, San Diego or San Diego area. And there was about 400 entrepreneurs, 300 entrepreneurs from around the world. I know they were from around the world because there was Scottish people there. Nice. Love those accents. Yeah. And then quite a few Aussies.
Always an Australian wherever you go. They're the best travelers.
Love it. Yeah, they go, well, because nothing fun happens in Australia. They have to go out of this country to
you gotta leave the island.
Get it done. Nothing but thieves and criminals there anyway.
And prehistoric animals. And bugs.
Yeah, everything that's trying to kill you.
So it was two long days. He likes to go late into the evening on cultivating stillness. And, he spent the first half of the day on the first day just setting the container, right? So they went over the rules of the event, which were, essentially, I'm not going to read the slide, but it was essentially, no judgment, nothing leaves the room. So no sharing, nothing goes on social media. Do your own work. So you're not there for anybody else. You can't coach. You can't pick up the coaching mantle or do any teaching or of any kind. You're just there to be
Witness.
and receive. That's right. And uh, I was like, in my mind, I was just writing down, because I'm a note taker and I'm ready. And I was laughing at like how much time they spent on just setting the container. And I was chuckling, like, of course you do. Because like even me, I'm intellectualizing, like, oh yeah, I get it. And then, as I start to like listen to other people's shares and then he goes through exercises, I start wanting to like judge and add to like other people's process. And I'm like, oh, you were talking to me.
There's that mirror. Yeah.
So good. So he did an amazing job. And I think the theme of his whole business, which he's been doing in this format for almost 10 years. I think he started in 2015, 2016, something like that. But his whole business has such a clear and palpable culture where the cultures of like kindness, the cultures of peace, the cultures of, he calls it mubita, which is experiencing joy at with your joy. So, um, being exuberant and just being thrilled for your success, other people's success. So that's palpable as you just go through the audience and go through the events. All the events I've been to is everybody's just been amazing and kind and present and vulnerable and easygoing and just wonderful. And part of that is he sets the stage for that. And part of that is I think that's just the people who are attracted to his brand.
Yep.
And because, I talked to him at one of the breaks and I was like, because, he's teaching people how to run businesses. It's like, let's make millions of dollars. And he's not like breaking down a funnel. I mean, he does that. Like he did that the last one. So it's not like they don't talk about sales mechanics and processes, but he spends a lot more time on the inner game part of the business. And I asked him if it was always like that. He's like, no, I start out, doing everything that you would imagine, right? Like, oh, here's how you create a sales funnel. Here's how you create a membership. Here's how you create, a coaching program. Here's how you create that. And then 6 months later, no one's doing anything. And he's like, oh, they're stuck on the other parts of it. And he's like, okay. So that he just works it into the curriculum. Like, okay, we're going to talk about this stuff.
That's awesome.
Examine beliefs. And so he's just very much organically generating it from what's needed. Plus that was his journey as well. And so it's like, I think about that for anybody who's listening. If you think that you have to be perfect to teach, then I would have you reconsider and just realize that the fact that you're going through shit in your own journey is what makes your voice a valuable voice to share with others.
Yeah. It's tuition.
Yeah, that's right.
And also the way you share it too can have a profound effect on other individuals, the way that they need to hear it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause Phil's going to tell you're going to tell your story differently than I'll tell my story. And even though we could be having the same types of issues, people are going to take two totally different messages away from it.
Yeah.
And I love that. So, I think I could go on and on. It was a great experience, but he did a good job and does a good job of pre-framing, setting the stage, creating a container, having the values and the culture of the business be so obvious and apparent that even though he does state them, they also are felt and don't need to be stated. And he's very congruent, and which makes the education process so much easier because there's not incongruencies, with the messenger and the message. And then, just everything's smooth. Like, all of the problems that you might have at a conference or when you're executing at a high level with lots of people are just very smoothed out because he's got such a good team. And, so there's so much good stuff. And I was thinking about you, Miles, the whole time because my therapist and I have been talking about, recapitulation and ho'oponopono and
Ho'oponopono.
getting right, getting correct, getting clean with your relationships with yourself and other people. And then James calls it cleaning, like you're doing the emotional hygiene around yourself and your relationships. And we did a lot of cleaning over the weekend. And I was like, man, my therapist has been trying to get me to do this for a long time.
Well, he or she planted the seeds.
100%. 100%. So it was a continuation of a conversation that I've been in for a while, and it was awesome to be in that conversation with a bunch of wonderful people who were teaching me things just by their very presence, to your point, Phil. And just cool, right? You get to learn so much about the world when you get exposed to 100 people who are at the same place in their lives, but coming from dramatically different worlds.
Yeah. Like it's a cool synergy. Yeah, retreats are so worth it. Or conferences and retreats. I'd say retreats. If you want to do this work, it's usually called a retreat. So you've been doing mentoring. That's your current mentor. Phil and I have been mentoring under Connor. We went to his men's retreat. That's how we met. And then we did working with men mentoring program with him. And it's about, I think, what did we start off with? Like 65 people. And then we ended up with like 25 regulars. Like a lot of people dropped.
Yeah.
Like you guys are just watching the replays and I think they were scared of the practice sessions where we're practicing each other.
Definitely. Or using an excuse of, something else like to get around that.
Mm-hmm.
But also Connor was a way, like he said, there's a lot of lurkers.
Lurkers, yeah.
Yeah. And I like that because it's like men are lurkers in a lot of ways. A lot of men who just want to hang around, see the content, but maybe they're not quite ready to take the action, or maybe they're not quite ready or gathered all the info that they need in order to actually join in or take that next step. So it's not a negative thing, but definitely should be called out that if you're lurking and not taking the action, you should probably take a look at actually doing some kind of action or finding a different place to take action into, because maybe it's not 100% hitting. You're just kind of...
It's probably why they're lurking on one reason. Yeah. Don't be a perpetual lurker, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's a really good program. We learned a lot. And I just signed up for his next one, which is eight guys for 3 months. And it's that plus your own stuff. I'm a little nervous because I think he's going to really make you like get after it. So we'll see. That starts next month, but he's been great to have as a mentor. It's really crazy that you can text him and he'll respond to you. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, like how personable he is and close we've all gotten. And we in that group that we did, of course, our men's retreat, we all bonded really closely. But even this one with all these coaches and therapists that signed up, we still got somewhat close, probably because of the practice sessions in part, because we're getting to know each other. And then you were talking about Ho'oponopono. You did that with one of the coaches who specializes in that. And
he's from Hawaii, and he knew that prayer. Just a shortened version of it. But if I remember correctly, all the components, you forgive the person, you say, I'm sorry. I believe also, like you said, I'm thankful you're in my life. I forgive you. And there's one more, but yeah, I'm probably messing up the order as well, but
you can Google it.
I'm sorry. I love you.
That's it.
Please forgive me. Thank you. So it's gratitude, love, apology, and forgiveness.
Love it.
And is it, you repeat it how many times so the person and yourself too is what? I mean, just like all folklore, right? This is going to change depending on who you're talking to about it. But my understanding of it is that you clean as much as you feel compelled to clean for the sake of you and another person. But the cleaning, just like you cleaning up your own street, it doesn't just change your view of your house. It changes everyone's view. So it affects more people than, in the world than just you and the person you're imagining. It affects everyone. So your cleaning is done ritualistically or, as much as needed, and it has a more global impact.
Yeah, it sounds like a cool modality. I've just always heard of it peripherally like this, but maybe one more thing to look into at some point. the thousands
Yeah.
things I'm looking at.
It was nice. It was a nice thing and to go through as well and walk through. It's
Mhm.
definitely a great modality.
Yeah, it was cool how we had us practice what he was doing, but you could sort of learn to blend it with how you work.
Yeah.
You know, and I've used his stuff immediately with my guys, and and it happened with my patients. When you were a guinea pig with him, I was a guinea pig with him. It's amazing how fast Connor can get you to tears.
Mhm.
You know, we're doing this in front of at first it was like when I did it was everybody because I was the first guinea pig. I was like, oh shit, is this going to work? But you do it with your eyes closed, so you're not looking at everyone's faces. And he just has such a good way of getting you past your ego right to the deeper parts of yourself, which are part of your ego, but get you past your defenses into the body, your direct felt experience. And he makes sort of, I don't say interpretations, but he'll say, my best guess is X, Y, Z after he's talked to you. And he nailed it with me about having a father wasn't there enough as I would have wanted. That's this time at a retreat, it was about the mother. This one was about the father. And it was, I don't know how long it was, like half an hour he did that, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
It felt like 5 minutes,
Yeah.
of course. And I'm just like in tears in front of randos. I didn't know anybody yet but you. And it was really good, but I've used these techniques already with some of my patients, and yeah, we've got them to much better results, quicker, farther, faster, deeper than, just talking around your narrative over and over. Regular talk therapy, that's just sort of like, I'm liking to that's the blueprint. Like, we got to know where this crap came from. What is attachment theory? What is the shadow? Sure, we have some techniques and we have some psychoeducation. We have some rapport building. You got to trust that human. Yes. It has to go deeper. Like, I keep going back to, we got wounded in relationship. We have to get healed in relationship. So if we're just talking about this stuff, we didn't get wounded just talking about this in an intellectual fashion. So your ego loves this, but that's why change doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
Like, you have good insight, but it doesn't vanish, right? So getting into a direct felt experience, letting the psyche and your imagination, the images that come inside you, the parts that come within, and getting deeper in relation with those, that's where stuff starts to change. That's I've worked with my own therapist who does IFS. We've had some really good sessions in the last few weeks around this. And, it's even like, there was a point where she had come in and we were talking and we were getting heady and she's like, I feel like we're arguing or something, or like there's some resistance in the room. I'm like, oh, I know it is. I don't feel like there's any contact. Back to this contact thing that we've talked about, Josh and I, and with the Dewey's stuff, attunement. I feel like I just wanted to come in and tell you that I had X, Y, Z going on and it didn't feel good. And I just wanted to say that. And she was going into fix it mode, kind of like us guys do. Like, let me just go into fix it mode. Like,
Wow.
I just wanted to be like her to say, oh, I believe you. That does suck. I could see how that hurt. And as soon as she did that, I was like emotional. And so it does work. And she's like, thank you for telling me, as any good therapist does. And she's like, I missed that. But then we went into some really deep work after that with, she works very similar to Connor, more in a mindfulness way with IFS. And it's been really good.
Explain IFS just in case for those.
Good call. Internal Family Systems
Yep.
Therapy. Yeah. I forget. We mentioned it so many times on the podcast, but for those who are just listening to this podcast for the first time, that's a psychological modality. Dr. Schwartz is the originator. Very, very good. I highly recommend it to anybody. But anyway, so I was doing that with Connor, and then you had your time on the hot seat, which was really fascinating. And that was when he was talking about shadow side connection, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you can explain the shadow to people.
Yeah. I did want to take a half step back. There was a couple of things when you were talking about how you were incorporating some of the things into your own practice and that level of like differences between from where certain practitioners, are to where they are speaking to their clients, but it seems like very high level in their head, trying to pull back from textbooks and things that they learned.
Technique.
But rather the things I remember watching in the calls and working with Connor is his capability to attune.
Yes, the contact. Yeah.
It wasn't as much of, well, let me pull in all these methods and research and different things. And I kind of want to go a little bit down a rabbit hole and pull me back if I go too far, but attunement is an incredible factor that we are lost a lot in our lives.
Yeah, most of it didn't get it from our parents. That's
Yeah.
where it originates from.
Especially men.
Mm.
The couple of clients I've worked with, and then also, just things I've seen and how I've progressed in my attunement to clients and others around me has made significant strides in capability to say, I think this is actually what's going on, not what you're trying to tell me on the surface level, nor any strategies I want to give. And I just want to talk further into what this is that I'm actually attuning to, feeling in my gut, that kind of capability.
It's called transference, countertransference in
Right.
psychodynamic terms. Yeah.
And it's such a powerful impact. And I think that's really something we miss out on. When I was referring to saying guys in general, we forget to attune to others in our lives.
Absolutely.
We want to solve problems. We want to do the things that we can fix and work with our hands on or do that.
We pin our worth on that.
But we don't want to attune to somebody to say, oh, I can actually feel what you're feeling.
And that is actually doing something, guys, by the way.
It is. And that's why I see a lot of relationships, and I mean, in my past and that kind of thing too.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I failed to attune. I failed to actually understand what the true meaning was.
To our own selves.
Yeah. But going back, pulling myself out of that rabbit hole.
That's a good one.
Is the shadow work. The things people think shadow is something dark and scary that resides inside of us, and that it's, this dark entity that lashes out and everything. No, it's not. It's not. It's the things that we've put into the shadow to protect, to not be seen by the world itself.
That we repress and suppress.
Right. The parts that lash out are the things that are trying to protect it. Anger. Even I've seen, people say, oh, I'm just too tired to get that done. And yeah, it has some validity, but the excuses type guardian, I would say, is a big one. Sadness will break out instead of actually viewing it. So a lot of things try to stop you.
When it feels like an overreaction to what's happening.
Right.
It's often a sign.
To bring that light, because it's a vulnerable piece of us. And it's something we forget. And that I know during that call and during my time with it, I brought out a lot of things in my past and a lot of hurt, that we all go through, but also my own specific hurts.
Yeah, maybe you can walk us through what that was like. And right before, I think Josh had a question real quick.
Actually, this is going great. I'm going to come back to attunement, but I want to hear where this goes.
Cool. So he was working with you, and that day the topic was the shadow and how to work with men, basically with humans, about their shadow side.
Yeah.
Within the way that he works.
Yeah. And it's really, for me, my experience there, I think just to be able to say and connect to that, what we usually see as a younger version of self, when this pain hurt, when this pain came into our life, whether it was from a traumatic experience in our childhood, whether it was something to do with Dewey's attachment-based theories and his pyramids of like, here's through these different ages and all the development stages in different years. Mine came a little bit later in life, closer to the identity portion of my life, towards the top. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you escaped some of the, what was it, is the world okay? Am I okay? Those first two, for the most part.
Yeah.
And then your wounding came more, I think in the last pod that you were on, you talked about like high school time.
Yeah.
When it kind of hit.
When that identity kind of was mixed up, and also even relationally, being able to have, more of that, how should I have a relationship with someone on that level? It was just the impact on that area in my life. And that's who I saw inside of me, was this teenager, not a young boy that many people may see or something like that.
Which was my experience, because that's where most of mine came from.
Yeah.
And then he was also talking about the golden shadow at this point too, which is the good stuff that can be repressed, that latent, like if your dad said, you're going to be a CPA, and you're like, I just wanted to play the guitar, man.
Yeah.
You got this latent musical ability. Well, you can go back and reclaim that from the shadows you had to actively suppress it to stay in attachment with your dad rather than build your authentic self, which was naturally inclined to music. You can go back and claim that. And I think he had us kind of do that in that visualization. And then for you had an image come up. Was
I'm
it?
trying to remember what that was.
Was the
That
wolf?
Oh yeah, when we actually projected to say, what is it that we need the most, and what shape, color, thing comes up. And for the reason for me was, the thing that came up for me was this image of a wolf.
Some archetypal imagery.
It was more of like not evil, but it was definitely aggressive,
Like assertive, powerful,
direct.
There we go.
And that was something that came up for me, and
Was that
something that's been missing in my life for a while.
So that's golden shadow.
That was my golden shadow. And now I've been practicing more direct, radical honesty. And it's been very helpful in my life. And just saying, I need to take this actions. And so I did in a lot of ways.
That's awesome. I mean, Jung would say, like, draw, paint, do art with these images over time, and just, not saying go get a tattoo of it. You could if you wanted to, because that thing might morph into something else. But draw a picture, or just have play with AI generators, whatever. Put some things up just to remind you, like, okay, that's the archetypal energy I'm meant to be working out of the shadows right now.
And that's where I set my background on my phone image to this wolf.
Boom.
Yep.
There you go.
Just as a reminder for a few weeks, and it helped. I mean, now I've seen the results of it being more direct, radically honest. And I keep using that term radically, even though honesty should just be honesty. But these days that has so many different terms. But radically, it's like, hey, I'm just going to be direct and open with you of what I really want.
Well, you've worked that really well with the dating scene recently, with what you told me. You don't have to air that here on the podcast, but it's worked for you. Like, damn, man, that was good.
I mean, and just long story short, really, it just ended up saying, no, I think this is, where I know I want to be in life and what I want from the vision I've created in my past. And I cannot give that up. And this is where I want to be. And the things, I want to build into my life. If you don't match this,
sticking to your holding the line, which is great, because I know there's a part of you that's like, oh, I should be married, I should have kids by now. There's part of me that desperately wants that, but then this stronger, higher self comes in and says, no, wait a second, man, we're good by ourselves.
Yeah,
this is what we would really want. We're not doing the nice guy thing. We're not going to fall on our own sword. We're not going to give to get. We're not going to compromise values just to be in relationships, just to say I check the fucking box that I'm fucking in a relationship. You're like, nope. So the wolf came out.
Yeah.
And the wolf said, no, this is what you need to be aligned pretty close to this. And here are some deal breakers. And if you're crossing that, I'm not going to compromise it. We can negotiate, but to a certain extent.
But there's, of course, things you just can't negotiate. There's certain things,
deal breakers,
that you shouldn't give up pieces of what feels like of yourself in order to make the relationship work. It won't.
It won't.
And that's your true self. Now, if you're giving up pieces of, like, parts that you want to go away or those types of things,
that's another thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
same move, wrong way.
Yeah.
The theme, the thematic element here that is in unity is, you use the word attunement, Phil. So to stick with that language, shadow work, honesty, attunement, the through line is attuning with yourself. Like actually being, people use the word integrity all the time. And a lot of times, what they mean is like cash register and, honesty, like not telling lies or being on time. And
10 Commandments kind of stuff.
Yes. And as a former cad and a rake, so you can be successful as a person if you have honesty and integrity with who you really are, and people get that, and you're happier because of it. Whether I'm referring to the dating conversation, but in any
maybe you want to explain what those.
So, I, as a career focused, younger man, I definitely dated a lot and had quite a few lovely girlfriends, rarely more than one at a time, but but my commitment was always to my purpose, and just being honest about that. A lot of people think like, oh, when you meet the right person, you're going to settle down or you're going to compromise. Fuck you. Like,
exactly.
I'm doing my thing, and I'm very blessed with a wonderful partner right now who knows what kind of animal I am.
And she's doing the same thing in ways, right?
And she's using it as permission for her purpose.
Yes.
Right. And we make a great team, and I'm so very lucky for that. But back to the integrity, you can be radically honest and have great integrity and be very attuned to everybody and not compromise with what you want. And it's not fictitious. It doesn't need to be like a battle if you are truly speaking from your heart. And then everyone gets it. It's like, it's inarguable. One of the things that my friends used to talk to me about is how like high maintenance girlfriends are and how hard dating is. It's like, I've never experienced any of that because I never tried to be what the other person wanted me to be. I didn't find it fictitious. I didn't find it like taxing. Hey, it's Friday night. What are you doing? Working. Like, if you want to hang out, I'll be available at X time, but it's like, it's not going out time for me, and not that I wouldn't, make time for social engagements. Of course I would, but it wasn't like, I never found myself in a place where I felt manipulated or was trying to manipulate somebody else. And for that, I'm very grateful. But the piece that is in alignment here with your own happiness is like it being attuned and really, really clear. Because like you said, there's competing interests. There's like, I've got this thing I want to do. I also want a family, not in this order, not in any order, right? The order is be myself first, find somebody who supports that vision, make a family with that person, right? So you have to be very still, to go back to the theme of the retreat. There must be great stillness, because it's really easy to say, oh, I kind of want that. Or, well, yeah, that sounds good right now.
Yes.
But doesn't? But how quickly will that combust if it's not in alignment?
Yeah, boom.
I think there's a lot more to that word integrity too. I think we think surface level, oh, just be honest, keep your promises, that kind of thing. No, it's a soundless commitment to self and who you are.
Like your authentic self.
And that attunement to that. I think we think of integrity as too light of a definition now. But really, when you are direct with who you are and unapologetically yourself, I should say, that's integrity. Being able to say, here's everything I am. And especially when it comes to a relationship, here's everything I am.
As I am now. Work in progress.
Of course it could change, yeah. These are my flaws too. Let's have a relationship built around honesty and integrity and openness of this.
But then this conversation could last forever, because we could just have a 3-hour conversation on integrity, because people don't come from the factory knowing that that's what you're talking about, Phil. Mm-hmm. And I had many great mentors when I was in the Army, and right before our Afghanistan deployment, I was trying out for selection, because I had in my mind I wanted to become a Green Beret, because when you're a paratrooper, you're just looking for that's
the next thing,
rung on the ladder, right? And my platoon sergeant said, hey, like, what are you doing? We're about to go down range, and like, you're conditioning for a 3-week obstacle course, essentially, in the States. We're in Germany. And he's like, I'm not going to take this to the commander to have him sign off on it, because he will let you go, but you're going to look like you're out of integrity. And I am 20, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm out here trying to get it done. What are you talking about? And he's like, no. Like, the mission now is to go down range and to support the 173rd in achieving its objectives. That's the mission. And your mission, as I understand it, is to maximize your career. And I get that. But what you're doing is you're putting your career in front of the mission now.
Gotcha.
And he's like, so you should be doing these things, not now. Mm-hmm. And that's out of integrity. And like, I would like, my textbook nerd 20-year-old was like, what? But I knew, like, the way he was saying it, I knew it was important. I was like, okay. And then I like reflected on like, oh, he wanted me on the team. Two,
Obviously.
he was teaching me something really important, which is like, ambition is great, but ambition at the cost of what you've already committed to is an abandonment of your
team,
your commitment. Yeah, exactly. Your group. So that's when I first started to dawn on me what you're talking about, Phil. It's like, you're not lying, but that's not exactly who you want to be. That's not exactly who you are. And it's like, you don't even know that. Like, sometimes you need somebody tapping you on the shoulder, like, you can technically do this, but it will not get you the result that you want or that you're going to be proud of, and by the way, if this goes the other way and I go and I, do 30 years in the Army and, and like, who knows, maybe I knew what my deeper integrity was, right? So I could have been right. But in the time and the way that I scribed the runes this way, I think that was the deeper purpose at that moment. So really, really, really important stuff, what you're saying, Phil. And so you're saying this work with Connor kicked off some other work in your personal life?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, going back to those components of being direct and just honest with myself of what is it that I need to do. One of the things that came up, not long after that session, was I need to continue to put the work in some of the things that were still bothering me, or that I still let, I should say, bother me from my past. And one of the things I knew, and also had an opportunity to do, was I needed to see about where this relationship with my father was going. He still, at that point was in my life too, but at like a arm's length distance.
And this is the wound that happened in high school.
Right. A lot of what felt like, abandonment to me, because it was, nasty divorce, breakup between the parents. I lived with my mom, and my dad moved out. Saw him here and there just a couple of times, and then he moved out of state. So it just kept feeling further and further and further. Actually, across the country from, where I was, from Colorado to Florida.
Oh, wow. That is quite.
Yeah. And it was a distance. So it's like, you don't see this guy and the guy that, you try to call, but maybe at that time and at many other times would not get back to you for 2-3 weeks. There was a lot of that feeling of just like, hey, I feel left alone. Yeah. Do you want a relationship? And I did give him a couple of chances. I did try to say, I need a dad. I need this. And, for a minute it worked, but it just would fall apart, at least to my eyes. It seemed like that, and it just felt like that for what happened. And things, his own integrity, just wouldn't be able to keep the things that he said he was going to do with, and some of the promises, some of the bigger things with me. But I knew that was still an issue in my life, because I was never really honest with him about where I was feeling.
Is that out of fear that he would distance more?
I think so, but also more of a fear for myself that I have to actually have this honest conversation and not know what the real outcome was going to be. And so I realized after this a little bit more that it's time to have that honest conversation. And it did start drifting further and further apart, especially from, the last things that we talked about, going through those couple of super hard things in my life of pretty bad breakup, and then also losing my nephew in life.
Like almost back to back?
Back to back, yeah. Less than a month with those couple of things happening. That it took me a while to get back on my feet. And then, but at the same time, I just kind of started pushing, even what I had left of a relationship with my dad at that point, which, to be honest, was a little bit, but not a ton, further and further away and more distance. And I was like, right now it's continuing to be on my mind and cause me pain. And I have an option because he was willing to talk with me and all that and everything. But I ended up just saying and calling him and saying, Dad, we need to have a talk. Meet me at this coffee shop. And, I just want to talk to you through a few things. And I think he knew what it meant. I mean, my dad's not a bad guy by any means.
Of course.
No. And he was receptive to it, and he knew what that meant. And so, I sat him down and I told him everything that I was feeling, the times that he broke my trust, lost his integrity to me, the promises he made, how he really hurt my life and the way that he basically was just gone.
That wolf was really howling at the moon.
Oh, it was. And I told him, despite trying a couple different times to reconnect and try to get to that relationship and, the years since, that it just kept falling through because he wouldn't keep through his promises or the integrity that he had or didn't have at that moment. And after going through all that, whether I didn't know what his reaction was going to be. I didn't know if he was going to be angry. I didn't know if it was like, okay, this relationship is done or anything. I was just like, I needed to say it
for you,
for me, and to get that completed in my life, no matter where this goes.
Yeah, close that loop.
To my surprise, he said, "You're right. I haven't been there."
How'd that land?
It made my stomach drop because I just wasn't quite expecting the full acceptance. And
so
it
felt good, but maybe a little anxiety provoking.
A bit, yeah. But also it was actually enlightening and grounding for me because it put me into the presence of like, I felt like he would be a bit receptive, but not sure. And he told me, I have been going through this stuff and thoughts of this too lately, and that I know something's wrong. And he said, I don't know why I did those things, but I did. And I know I've hurt you many times. And what do I need to do to fix this?
Olive branch.
And I told him, I appreciate that. And we walked for a long time after the coffee shop and talked about all the different scenarios that this has happened. And I said, look, I appreciate, he was a great dad when I was a little kid, playful, took me on adventures all the way through till about high school. And I said, I'm not sure what happened to you in high school. I'm not sure if something came up during that time and caused this to happen to where you felt like you needed to break the family up and
some replication,
leave, and that there was
shadow side replication,
right?
Yeah.
I said, I'm not sure if that was a cause or what, but you need to figure that out for yourself. And I was like, I can't do that. You're gonna have to do that with your own work. And I suggested a lot of Connor's work, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna do what I need to do. And he started reading his book and everything from there. I did tell him though, because of his past, I appreciate what you say here. I'm hopeful, but I'm guarded.
Trust but verify sort of thing.
Right. And that I had to do for myself and say for myself because I wanted to be again, radically honest, because this hasn't been, to this level, this is the first time, but other things in the past of that lack of integrity and keeping a promise has been there. But that was about a month ago when I decided
pretty fresh
to make that. And ever since he's been putting the work in.
Good.
And we've been connecting, and it has been good. And I've seen, starting to see some of the change. It's going to take a lot of time, and there's a lot to unpack. And it's going to be a lot on both his end and where he goes and who he sees too to help with that. So a lot of recommendations I keep giving, and he's taking them. So
like the book,
it's
breath work, things like that.
Yeah. But I did this because I was just knew whether or not a relationship would form again with him. It just had to happen. And I had to do it for me to let go.
Absolutely.
And to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And to be the components of my own self of direct and attuned to what I needed in life.
Yeah. Self-attunement. We forget about that. Yeah, it's super important. And people often don't think it's worth doing this with their parents after a rough childhood. But even if they don't respond the way you want, like you said, it's for you. And it's, if you do that, you sort of tell your own self that you do matter.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's sort of tell yourself maybe you don't matter. And then it maybe unconsciously confirm that you don't matter, which was the messaging maybe you got from these parents. So if you risk saying what you think and feel to them, even if they get defensive or ignore you, you still said I hate this word, your truth, but there's some truth to that. So nice work. Way to use the wolf.
Well, I mean, I also had the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to wait till, he's
right,
extremely old or gone in
right.
my life to be able to say this, because there's also an effect of that on yourself. And
absolutely.
So I had the opportunity to do so.
Mm-hmm. But
it's definitely something, we have to do, is that let go. And even if you don't have that parent in your life or able to have that conversation with them or anything like that, write it down.
Yeah, you can still do it that way. Or in therapy, you can use imagination. There's some things you can do with IFS and stuff like Connor's work that you can still, that person can still be very much alive, and you can still rework, repurpose things and change the emotional and psychological dynamic, sort of like you can do with trauma. Same idea.
I mean, whether you like it or not, the fact that it's still holding you back, that person's alive in you.
Bingo. Yep.
And that's where writing a letter and burning that letter to that person and going through is like one of the powerful things I believe Connor has in his book. It's also
a classic one. Yeah.
It's just like, there's a reason why it's classy, is because you're writing it to that person that's still alive inside of you.
And then release.
And having that conversation with them.
Yeah, you've had a few of these passes with your parents, but a little bit harder on your end, I would say, Josh, right?
I mean, I think that the net process is the same. I like that you brought up the letter writing, and Esther Perel. You don't know what I'm going to say. Stop finishing my sentences.
I'm psychic. It's an ADD thing. Sorry.
We spent too much time together. It's a time thing too. But Esther Perel has a thing when you're in a conflict, write 2 letters. The first letter is an angry, like visceral, like all the things you wanted to say and didn't say. And then that's for you. And then you put that letter aside, and then you write a more empathetic, generous letter to the both of you. Right. And then it's up to you whether or not you even need to have the conversation, but you've expressed those parts of you. Right?
Well done.
And the work is, I think that you've already done so much of it, Phil. And I asked you earlier, like, what does success look like? And you were like, on, TBD, right? Like, we'll see, but you basically, I want a father figure. And I've been having these conversations. This is a theme in my life with my other entrepreneur friends. And, write in if you have like a wonderful family dynamic and you get along with everyone in your
Success story.
But my spiritual perspective on this is that our parents, I'll speak for me, and then the way that I talk about my life is this way, and so everyone else is their own experience. But in my life, what I think is that my physical parents are random. They're randomly selected. My soul chose this journey because it was the easiest way for me to get what I needed to grow and to evolve as a spiritual being. And as a human being, I love my parents. But to your point, Miles, my parents have been through a lot on their own without me. And having early on conversations about what is happening, what is going on, like why are you doing this, and having them both explode in different ways, I realized that they have work to do that has nothing to do with me. And only recently have I like made enough peace to where I can say that without too much resentment. And like, I don't think I've still healed. I think my onion is still peeling, but I think the process is like, at first I just had to understand that my parents were deeply wounded before we ever met.
Yep.
And I voiced my truth in the moment, and that is how it went. And then I went my own way, and it's been a process of forgiveness and ho'oponopono ever since. Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono. Yeah.
So, I'm curious to see how it goes, but I think that the fact that you're doing the work is, on your end, cleaning up your side of the street, is most of the value of these conversations. And for me, that's been the case. And I have like 5 probably people on social media I pay attention to what they say, and sometimes I send them to Miles, sometimes I don't. But what I just noticed is a lot of what Alex Hormozy or Dave Ramsey or Tony Robbins or Gary Vaynerchuk or any of the people that, I don't pay close attention to very many people, but at very high level coaching is really just very user specific parenting, where they're creating a safe space, they're seeing you, and they're seeing where you want to go, and they're giving you unlimited tries to get there, and not believing any of the garbage you tell them about yourself, and just waiting for you to inch your way forward.
It's parenting. That's the nutshell of parenting.
Right?
Attachment, attunement, contact.
And I get it. I don't think, to your point, Phil, I don't think that need for parenting ever ends. We must be self-led.
Yeah, that's it.
And we really admire people who are self-led, the Jockos of the world, the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world.
Connor Beaton.
Trevor Boehm. But when you zoom in, all of those people have, Tony Robbins' mentor was Jim Rohn.
Just not a bad mentor.
Are you kidding? Listen to any of his books. It's gold-plated wisdom today.
Yep. Still holds up.
So being parented is something that we all need all the time. And if you think someone's doing it solely on their own, you look deeper and they're getting their wisdom from at least someone outside of themselves. And okay, maybe Eckhart Tolle is just listening to God, but he's insane. Everyone else has a flesh and blood mentor.
Yeah, exactly. He's switched on somehow. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing or what kind of psychedelics he's got in his back pocket, but I want some.
What was it that 10% Happier by Dan Harris? He meets all these gurus, and he's like, they're all salesmen except for Eckhart Tolle, who's insane.
Yeah, he's really.
He doesn't need anything from you. He just obviously is checked out.
He's like a shaman. Yeah, he's the village shaman for sure.
But that's it. That's good. So laughing and being able to recapitulate on our own terms over time. That's the way it is. And the funny part, and then Miles and I talk about this all the time, is at that retreat that I was at, one of the attendees, who was a guy, who was a male, identified as a male, grabbed the mic, asked a question. He's like, "Hey, do we have to do all this like memory work, or can we just like do things differently? Do we have to go back and release all this stuff?" And like all the guys in the room just nodded and agreed, and chuckled to ourselves like, "Oh yeah, we wish. We wish. Just do different. Just be better.
Just change.
Just be better.
Yeah. Stop eating. Stop doing those drugs."
And so if you're listening to this and you think, God, these guys are full of shit, then you're the one who needs the stillness, and take a walk and re-listen to this podcast and write down the parts that made the least sense to you, and then write in about them, and we'll have a podcast about that.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
But anything else to add, guys, before we wrap?
Do you want to mention where people can find you if they want to do coaching?
Yeah.
And then also we were talking about the white knight and dark night that spontaneously came out of you archetypally last time. So we're calling you the gray night now, even though your coaching thing is a different name, which I'll let you speak to in a second.
Actually, I like something that Josh was talking about, like the white knight with the black shield, but I'd say like almost with the black sword too, to cut things to a ribbons. Thoughts, pushing through, not letting things impede upon you.
Mhm.
And but no, yeah, it was definitely a great chat about that today. I think definitely I really liked our talks about attunement and things going into that in life and seeing where you really need to go, the directions you need to go, attuning to self. But also, we probably have 3+ episodes about attuning, and because there's so many different components to it, but tuning to others in your life, truly attuning to them, saying, what do you really need from this? Not what I think, but what is my gut feeling that I think you need? And just getting rid of all the other noise.
Yeah, you really have to slow down and be still.
Yeah.
Back to Josh's point, to go there. Because you have to get past your BS or ego to really, okay, I'm going to suspend my inner world and just go into that person's. Like, if I was a parent here, not that you have to be a parent, but like, let me read the room with this human really deeply. But what's coming up with me intuitively that they might need or want from me, from the world.
Right.
That's an art. That takes a lot of reps.
Yeah.
Worth it though.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can bring that into the therapy world and those practitioners get more into that, instead of being in the head and trying to just,
problem solve,
go through, the problems and come up with various techniques that they learn,
classic.
Sure, they can be effective in certain realms, but that attunement's also a critical piece to say what would be most effective here.
All the studies show it's the relationship that ultimately does the healing. The techniques just support it.
So, but no, to everybody out there, continue to build that. Listen to yourself, your heart, your gut. That's probably the best places to start to think about attunement. What is this really feeling? What am I truly feeling? So, I really like that message today.
Yeah, me too.
So,
and where can people find you again?
Yeah, so you can find me a couple different routes. You can find my website at www.thegroundedwarrior.com. I do have some free resources on there. Actually, that letter to those who caused this pain is on there as a resource. Developing your vision, passion, all those kind of components there. Definitely check that out. You can also find my Instagram, Grounded Warrior, on there. Starting to ramp that up even more, putting more content out on there. And then looking towards YouTube here as well, to be able to create some longer videos since we have those caps on Instagram. And
apparently people are watching podcasts on YouTube, which still blows my mind. I don't get it, but
trying to start a component there. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you move here so you can be a more frequent guest and all that fun stuff. We're working on you.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's always a good time with you guys.
Oh yeah.
Always a good time.
Yeah. Working out and podcasting. It's a good weekly thing.
Yeah.
Black Knight for the win.
Yeah. The gray knight, right? The integration of the white.
Well, he's got a black sword and black shield, but we all know Phil. He's a white knight. He's a white knight. And we're trying to get him. We're giving him a
spot of black.
We're giving him a little piece of evil when he comes to visit us, but he's a white knight.
Yeah, we're corrupting him. Speaking of corrupting, if this podcast has really helped you, do share it with one human. It does help us. Push the follow button, all that malarkey everybody says. It really does help. We're trying to grow the podcast. We haven't really put it out there on the socials or all that algorithm world yet, but we will. So if you do this now, you get the benefit of saying you are an early adopter of this podcast, and you'll get a gold star and a special badge. So go ahead and do that. It helps us. And then you can have bragging rights. Until next week, we are out.
Peace.
Take care.